how was Georgetown?
Georgetown
How's
was
your
great.
experience there?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was a decision that I made because a lot of people are like, and Georgetown wasn't when I was going wasn't really known as a football school or soccer school. But a year before I got there, they actually made it to the championship and lost to, I think it was Notre Dame.
Okay.
And so things were beginning to turn around. But when I made my decision, everyone was like, "Hey, you want to play professionally? You might want to go to a school that's known,
Yeah.
to." Again, for me, I made a decision based on a lot of things. One being obviously it's a good school, and what I studied in college, I think it's one of the best programs in the country. Plus, for me, it was again, it came down to the coach, because
Yeah.
most college coaches, when you talk to, will do everything they can to convince you that they have the best program, and
Yeah.
will sometimes talk bad about other programs to get you to come to the end. And I remember talking to my coach at Georgetown, and he's like, "What schools are you looking at?" And I told him everything. He goes, "Oh, all those schools are amazing. I mean, whichever one you go to, you're gonna have a good time, and it's gonna be great. All these places are great." And I remember thinking in my head, "That's it. You're not gonna convince me to come to your school." And for me, that was the moment for me, because and
Mm.
ended up, he was just all around a good coach and a really good person that didn't just care about you as an athlete, but cared about you as a person and what you could do beyond just playing for him and winning games for him. And as a result, I mean, he's done well for himself and for the school and for the program. He ended up winning a championship, and he's still there, still doing great things. And so for me, one of the best experiences in my life was going to Georgetown. Was it challenging? Yes, a lot of challenges in terms of academically, but
Yeah.
that pushed me to the point where I realized that I had more in me than I thought, going into college.
Yeah, for sure. Like, what other schools were you looking at or were looking at you?
I was looking at, for me, I almost was pushing to go to Stanford. That would have been the ideal for me because I wanted to go to a good school, a good program. But everything I was looking at was I wanted to stay on the West Coast,
Yeah.
partly because it's warm, and coming from Ghana, I wasn't used to the cold, and I wasn't trying to mess with that,
Yeah, trust.
because I remember it was funny when I actually got to Georgetown. It was the spring season, and I got out like, this is too cold, I cannot train, and people were just looking at me laughing. They thought I was kidding. I'm like, no, I'm serious, I cannot train. Cold because you still have snow everywhere. It's cold out. You're training at 7 a.m. I'm like, no, this is too cold. I can't. And they thought I was kidding. But again, over time, you kind of you get used to it and you go over it. But I was looking at a lot of and a lot of people actually thought I was going to end up at UCSB because
Yeah.
I had a lot of my friends go there and I knew the coaches there really well. UCLA, a few Ivy League schools, Yale. But at the end of the day, I had to sit down and really think, where was going to be best for my future, not just in terms of soccer, just in terms of academics. Like, where was I going to go that was going to give me a good combination of everything that I'm looking for? And
Yeah.
when it came down to it, it was Georgetown for me.
What did you end up studying?
So I ended up majoring in. I have two majors: one in anthropology, with a concentration in medical anthropology,
Yeah.
and my other major is in government with a concentration in international relations.
Damn. So at the end of, let's say, when you finish playing, just a question far out,
Mhm.
what would you want to do?
Ideally, I mean, I've always and for a long time now, I've thought about going into diplomacy.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, I would want to do mediation, just sit between two people, have them talk it out, try to figure something out.
Yeah.
But my ideal job would be to be a Ghanaian diplomat. Um,
Yeah.
but again, you know how life is. You can have plans and all that, but things change. Things
True.
come up. It's good to have a plan, but again, I'm beginning to realize that slowly. That things never really work out the way we have them planned. It's just the
Yeah.
way life is. But again, it's good to have a plan in place, and when I'm done, I'm most likely going to end up going to grad school and hopefully become a diplomat.
For sure, man. Let's roll it back and go back to college. How did you deal with playing and then doing the classes? Because I know it was hard for me because
Yeah.
I hadn't done school for 3 years
Yeah.
before going to college.
Uh,
So like it hit me like a ton of bricks. But how did you deal with it?
it was rough. But my coach, being the nice guy he is, enrolled me in summer school.
Yeah, I had that as
At the
well.
time, I wasn't happy about it because I remember getting the call and I'm like, I'm trying to enjoy my summer. Like, what do you mean I got to go to summer school?
Yeah.
I was in summer school from, let's see, July until August. And then I went from there like a few days later into preseason. But he enrolled me in summer school and I took 2 classes over the summer. And I'm really grateful for that now
Yeah.
because what that did was I was taking classes with actual Georgetown professors.
Oh.
And I kind of learned quickly that some papers or some things that you do in high school that grants you an A is gonna probably be a B or a B minus in college.
Yeah, yeah.
So I remember I took humanities and international relations, introduction to international relations that summer. And I remember getting my first paper back from my English class and being like, I went to my advisor and I started crying. I'm like, I don't think I can do this. Like I gave this people everything and I still got a B minus on it. And she's like, oh, that's a good grade. Like, don't worry about it. You know, it's your first time. You're gonna learn how to write in college. And so at the same time, I went to my professor and I said, I think this is a good paper. This is better than a B minus.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, I know. If you wrote this in high school, you probably would have gotten like an A or A minus. I'm like, why are you giving me a B minus? He said, writing in college is just different. You have to learn how to write in college.
Yeah.
Okay. And so she worked with me a lot, and I ended up at the end of that summer with an A minus in that class. And my introduction to international relations class, I loved it because that was my major,
Yeah.
and I ended up doing well in that. And so I went into and those 2 classes counted as
Towards
credits,
yeah.
and towards my GPA. So I started college with a 3 point, I think it was a 3.9 or something like something that crazy.
Yeah.
And so already I was going in really confident, think to myself, okay, I can do this. Like this is not nothing too crazy. I can do it if I work hard enough. And so I started college and I could see, the phase of class, everyone is like, everyone is trying to figure it out, all the freshmen. I'm like, I got this campus down, I know where all my classrooms are.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm confident going in. And so that confidence that I had kind of motivated me and helped me stay focused the whole semester. And at the end of the semester, I looked at my GPA and my grades, and I'm like, okay, this is becoming easier. And so throughout my college career, I was able to maintain, a really good grades and really good GPA. And I think that wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for those 2 summer classes that I took. Because if what happened to me in the summer had happened to me
In
during the
first
semester, I would have completely broken down because I would have probably said, this is too hard, it's not going to work. And it could have been a different story, especially when you're doing that combined with the season. And so I kind of got a taste of how the classroom was going to be and how classes are going to be without having to deal with the pressure of training every day and traveling and doing all that stuff. And so again, I mean, I'm thankful for my coach for doing that. But when he first told me about it, I wasn't too happy because I didn't want to spend my summer that way.
That's true. So obviously now you're playing at Georgetown and the season started and the years are going by.
Yeah.
How did you find out about getting drafted, or did you always know that you were gonna leave early, or?
Yeah. So I didn't know I was going to leave early because when I went into college, that's the conversation I had with my coach. I said I don't plan on being here the whole 4 years.
Yeah.
And so kind of like just letting you know. And so he said, okay, well, that's great. Thanks for letting me know. How can we help you so that when the time comes, you're ready to get out? And so what actually happened was I sat down with him and I sat down with my academic advisor. And she said, okay, if this is what you want to do, if you want to get out early, how about taking kind of an overload?
Yeah.
So take an overload and then take 4 classes every summer.
Bro, I
And so
did that.
that's what I did. So I never had my summers off. I went from semester to semester to summer school to it was back to back to back until I left college. And so that plan was put in place my freshman year. And so the summer after my freshman year, I was in summer school the whole summer. I took 4 classes that summer. And I took an overload the next semester. And so I almost, every semester was pretty much an overload for me. And then every summer was 4 classes after my
Bro,
freshman
how
year.
many classes were you taking in the fall and spring then?
Yeah, I was taking 6 at least every semester. Yeah.
You're mad, man.
Yeah.
I think I was taking 5, and then I think a couple of summers I took 4 and
Yeah.
3. And then I was doing classes in the winter as well.
Yeah.
It's all mad.
I mean, it's crazy because I kind of worked myself to the point where I was tired. I was burning out.
Yeah.
And so there's one time where I was really burnt out and really stressed. I had to actually, you know, drop a class because it was like
Yeah.
I was in season and it was just a lot to do. So I left college. If I had stayed at Georgetown, I would have completed my whole degree in 3 years instead of 4 years
Yeah. Yeah.
because of the rate I was going with. But I left after 2.5 years with only 6 classes left to
Yeah.
complete my degree, which I was able to do and get my degree.
How did you hear about getting drafted?
Oh yeah.
Did you know when you were getting there, or like was it
So
like a shock on the day?
no, I mean I knew it because my freshman year and I played was a good year for me. My sophomore year was probably my best year in college, and that was a year that Orlando City was coming in, and everyone was like, I was I was offered a GA contract. I was offered a GA, but I didn't want to leave school.
Yeah.
And so obviously everyone's like, you should leave because you're gonna be the clear #1 pick, and you're gonna go, like everything was lined up pretty good. But for me, if I had left, it would have been almost impossible for me to graduate. It would make it much harder. And I knew that staying a year of playing in college could help with my development as well, and just help me become a better player and a better person because you do mature within a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I didn't take that, and that was a scary decision
Yeah, I was
because
gonna say that must have been a hard one. Yeah.
yeah, that was tough because what if something happens? What if there's an injury? What if I don't do well enough to get it the next year? And so those were all questions. But I knew myself, and I said, if I'm healthy and I'm playing, I know I'll get it again because that's just who I am. I know I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah.
And then my junior year, I remember it was one of the games I got taken out, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" And for me, when I was down, everything came to my mind. I was like, "Crap, maybe I should have left the year before." It's kind of like a play, but ended up not being anything. I didn't miss any games for it, and then I got the GA again my junior year, which actually ended up being a much better deal for me than it would have been the previous year. And so it all worked out. But again, it was a decision that was hard to make. But I'm glad I stayed. And Georgetown actually also did a lot of things to make sure that I was comfortable. And they got to a point where they actually insured me that if I got injured, I would have gotten paid out, and I would have gotten my master's degree almost paid for because it's. So I had all these things in place if I was injured and couldn't play anymore. Which is good on the school spot.
Yeah, shout out to Georgetown because you don't get that many times. I know even with just a general rule of thumb, when you I don't know how they word it, but when you basically decide to go into the draft process, you can't go back to school, right?
No. I think it's okay. Yeah, once you declare to go to, I honestly don't know how it works in college in terms of soccer, but yeah, once you get drafted, that's it.
That's it,
Your
yeah.
scholarship is gone.
That's mad. Yeah, so give us a little insight on how the day when you got drafted, innit? How was that? Yeah.
It was crazy. I mean, fortunate for me, it was in Baltimore,
Yeah.
which was really close to DC,
Yeah.
and it wasn't too far away because I remember went to the combine, and then they wanted me to fly straight from Fort Lauderdale to Baltimore, but I was
Yeah.
like, no, I got to go back to school. I got to go back to campus because I had everything there. And so I flew to DC instead, and then just went to the draft the night before. It was one of the coolest events in my life. I mean, you're sitting there not really knowing where you're gonna go, and it's a surprise. And a lot of people, were projecting me to go number one. And so when my name wasn't called as number one, I was like, oh no, this is not good. Like, what's gonna happen now? I don't. But I got called up. I got drafted number 2 by Philly, and it was kind of a relief once you find out where you're going. And everyone, I had my family, my host family there with me. I had, so it was kind of a really big deal. I had my agent and everyone there, and some of one of my professors came to it. So it was a cool moment for me, seeing everyone, supporting me, and because DC is not too far from Philly, there were actually a lot of Philly fans there, and I got to meet most of them and stuff like that. And so really good day, but it's a day that if I look back, now knowing what I know, I would have probably enjoyed it a lot more. Just, relax and not stress out about it, because I was stressed out the entire time. Like, my palm was sweating when I was sitting down there.
But as well as it should be, because like obviously you're sitting there thinking that your dream that you've been God knows how long can be made in these next like few hours, you know what I mean? So
I mean, I knew I was going to get drafted because as a GA you already have your contract going in, and so it doesn't really affect you in any way. But again, just not knowing where you're going and not knowing who is going to pick you, it's enough to make you sweat. And I was there because I remember people telling me afterwards, like, we've never seen you this nervous. I'm like, I know, but it's a day where a really good and enjoyable day, but there was also a lot of nervous moments, but it all ended up working out in the end.
True, but did you not speak to any of the, I guess, the teams beforehand that may have had an interest, you know what I mean?
I did. I mean, I knew, some teams had meetings with me, and all they would say is, we really like you, but our draft position, and we don't have enough to make a trade for it. There are some teams that try to make a trade for it. That the night before, told me we're going to trade for the spot, and if we get it, we'll draft you. And so I didn't know. I didn't know. And in my mind, there was one particular team that if they had said your name, I would have literally gotten up and walked up, because I knew that if they were able to secure the spot, they would have drafted me. And so I had all these things in place, but I still didn't have no clue where I was going to end up.
Yeah, that's mad.
It's crazy. It's an enjoyable moment though, because you get to meet most of the teams, and you get to talk to the coaches, and they learn about you learn about them. But again, most of my meetings were like, yeah, we really like you, but we don't think you're going to fall far enough for us to pick you up. And if it happens, it happens. But we just wanted to have a chance to meet with you. And so it was nice. It was nice and good that way. But again, if I could go back, I'd probably enjoy it a little bit more than I did.
Yeah, true. Well, how fast did things move after the draft in terms of like going into training camp and all that stuff?
It's crazy, because it went from, you get drafted, and then you just have media, just interviews to the staff. And then right after that, I went and met the fans, because they were there, and they were at a pub somewhere. So when I met them and then drove back to DC, started parking, actually had to go to Philly and then later on have all my stuff taken from DC to me in Philly, because I didn't have a place in Philly yet. And so it went straight from getting drafted into Philly and starting preseason.
Sheesh.
Yeah, it happens that quickly. It's for me, actually, I was fortunate because I didn't have to go right away. I told them, I was like, I need some time to pack up my my apartment or my dorm room, and I had a few days to do that. But yeah, it's crazy. You just, once the draft happens, you're on your way to wherever you need to go.